Hello YouTube. Today I'm going to talk about 4 common problems on an Oldsmobile Aurora ranging from 1995 to 1999 that you may experience in your ownership. I've owned this Oldsmobile Aurora for about 6 months now, and honestly it's one of my favorite cars I've ever owned. I've purchased it from the original owner who meticulously maintained the thing, but these cars have some serious issues. Some of you probably know what I'm talking about, but this car is just so nice and unique, I'm willing to put some money into it and keep it running for a bit. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and show your support to my channel. My channel has grown significantly and it's all thanks to you guys for your support. The goal is to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so let's see if we can make it happen. Common problem number 1 is the infamous head gasket issue. If you don't know already, the Oldsmobile Aurora has an engine that's part of the Northstar engines that GM made in the 90s. The Cadillac Northstars are notorious for blowing head gaskets and causing severe damage to the engine. Although this L47 variant of the Northstar used in this Oldsmobile Aurora is not that terrible, it is still known for head gasket failures. If you want to be really technical, the true cause of the head gasket failure is corrosion of the actual head gasket from the coolant. The water jacket, when not completely full of water due to leakage, forms steam pockets, creating much higher pressure inside the water jacket, which in turn pushes the heads away from the block when overheating occurs. This pulls the threads from the aluminum block. The head gasket repair requires new head bolts, so it will involve drilling and bolt threads and replacing with permanent studs in the block. Sounds very costly, right? Definitely a lot of work, but honestly, I see myself doing this in the future if this problem occurs for this vehicle, because I absolutely love the car and I want to keep it on the road as long as possible. When I was going through forums, a handful of people mentioned that it's not always the head gasket that goes bad on these and causes the overheating issue. Many think the coolant loss issue on the 4-liter engine is the head gasket, but there are a handful of owners who experience something else. So there are coolant lines behind the motor. 2 hoses go into a metal section, then 2 more radiator hoses are exiting. The metal part corrodes and leaks, which will cause the engine to overheat. So it's not always the head gasket that goes bad, according to owners. Common problem number 2 is oil leaks. Valve cover gaskets, oil pan gasket, and the block splits at the crankshaft, so there's a lot of potential leak sites. The valve cover gaskets are easy to replace and very accessible. The oil pan, however, cannot be removed with the transmission or exhaust in place, as the transmission blocks access to several bolts and the exhaust has a crossover pipe under the pan. The engine splits at the crankshaft, as I mentioned before, so the crank goes into an inverted upper block and then the lower block is mated and bolted on. The lower block contains the bottom half of the crank bearings. Of course, that leaves a seam all the way around the block at crankshaft level, a seam that is supposed to keep oil inside the block. There's no gasket, just a sealing compound, but again, that ages and may lose its seal, allowing oil out into the otherwise pristine environment. My car also was leaking oil, but I'm not sure where exactly. The previous owner said he paid close to $4,000 Canadian to have the engine completely removed and resealed everywhere, so I think I'm good for a couple of years. Moving on to common problem number 3, which are electrical issues. This being a GM product from the 90s, it's expected to have electrical issues, and that is the case with the Aurora. the tilt steering wheel and wiring harness weren't always routed properly on the early Auroras, like the one I have here. So whenever you are adjusting the steering wheel position, you are damaging wires in the back, and this may lead to your vehicle not starting. So it's best to set the steering wheel position once and for all. There are also heating issues where the driver's side footwell didn't get that much air, and there is a technical service bulletin on this as well. Quite a common issue on the early Auroras. There is a primary vehicle ground on the passenger fender well, where it's exposed to salt, dirt, and water. Consequently, this will lead to corrosion and such, and then it'll cause electrical issues. So if you're having any other electrical issues inside the vehicle, check that ground to see if it looks good or not. And many owners have added a new ground from the engine block to the shock tower, which seemed to solve the issues. Last but not least, common problem number 4 is the weather stripping. This wasn't an issue when the car was relatively new, but it's almost 30 years old now, and the weather stripping on the car gets a little brittle and cracks and kind of moves around. GM doesn't make these anymore, and you'll probably have to get something custom made for the Aurora, which will cost a lot of money to do so. As you can see, mine is starting to separate, and I have temporarily fixed it with some silicone. I wish I did that with black silicone and not clear silicone. I'm still looking for a shop that will do it and at a reasonable price. A lot of shops rejected the fix and don't want to deal with it, so I have to make sure that the Aurora is parked inside the garage because I don't want water getting inside and causing other problems. Overall, I absolutely love this car, and this car is just amazing to drive. You gotta drive one to really understand what I'm talking about. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you all next time.